century in some provinces. But actually, I think it's evidence that even worse ones and bigger ones are yet to come, and that's the challenge China has to face.
The headline on this story is about food security. China has been able to sustain its own food supply for some time now, but the development means that the diets are changing, that more food is needed, and there's a much bigger global impact, isn't there?
Yes, of course. And because China has the biggest population, and it is a developing country, its population is still growing at very comparatively fast speed. So food security would always be the top priority of the Chinese top leaders to consider. However, I think because we are an agriculture-based country and we are already very vulnerable to climate change, to weather condition changes, and actually with the temperature rise and change of rainfall pattern, climate change is already putting more and more threat and risk to the food production, especially the green products, like the recent winter and spring droughts. It hits the hardest to the northern regions, being the biggest winter wheat growing area. I think that's even more dangerous. And Greenpeace has commissioned a study back in 2 years ago, and with the climate and agriculture scientists, which actually says if we sit on our hands and doing nothing, if we allow the temperature to actually raise to more than 2 degrees and even 3 degrees, then agricultural production of China would definitely be hit hard. Right. And in 2030 earliest, there is a risk that China can't can't feed its people by its own food production, and you'll see a gap
Lian,
there.
I'm going to have to cut you off. We're out of time, but thank you very much indeed for your interesting insights. Lian, live from Beijing. She's with Greenpeace China. Now back to Doha and Sammy.
Thanks so much. Well, let's try and find out if there's any respite in store. Any good news coming ahead, Everton?
Well, I'm not too sure that there is actually, Sammy. There's no sign of any rain in the forecast for northern China, but there is some cloud around, and I know that the Chinese are fans of cloud seeding, so there is the possibility of maybe trying this particular process over the next couple of days.
They tried it a few days ago, didn't they?
That's right, they have tried it recently. We did have a band of cloud moving through. Off the back of that, we had 3 centimetres of snow in Beijing. It's around 3 millimetres of rain, so not exactly conclusive, but if it rains over the next couple of days, I may have to change my tune.
Over the north of Beijing, as the visibility drops, you'll still see things with perfect clarity.
Well, you can see from our satellite picture this area of cloud, which is just making its way across North Asia. Another band of cloud started to push its way in. It is a pretty narrow band of cloud, and I think it will essentially stay largely dry and sunny across northern China. As you can see, the cloud does thin as it makes its way down towards Beijing. So we're looking at temperatures of around 13 Celsius here on Tuesday, maybe nudging up to 14 degrees. Essentially, I think it will stay dry. That cloud making its way towards the Korean Peninsula, dry too across a good part of South Korea and indeed across much of Japan. A chance of some rain down towards Kyushu, the far south of Japan. Could see a little bit of wet weather, maybe a little bit of damp weather, some patchy drizzle. Liquid sunshine, shall we call it, into eastern China, down towards the southwest. And I think here you could well see more in the way of heavier downpours. Chance of some wet weather too into South Asia over the next day or so. We've got some lively showers into southern parts of India. It shouldn't affect the cricket, I'm pleased to say. This is Tuesday's picture. Nagpur stays fine and dry, and it should stay dry for southern areas of Sri Lanka as we go on through Wednesday and Thursday. Staying dry across the Arabian Peninsula, highs here in Doha of around 25 Celsius, similar to values, in fact, across much of the peninsula. What unsettled weather we do have is further north, around parts of the Caspian Sea.
Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
Well, still to come on the news hour, as the unrest in Libya spreads and oil prices climb, could the country's exports also be disrupted? A recession-proof industry. Global arms sales break the $400 billion barrel, with US companies gaining the biggest share of the market.
an astonishing moment.
We are globally yours.
Crack addicts, thieves, violent offenders, doing time in Tehran's Youth Correctional Center. Victims of Iran's epidemic of addiction, poverty, and broken homes. A lost generation find friendship, support, and a place to be children again. It's always late for freedom. A witness special at this time on AlJazeera.
You're watching Al Jazeera. Let's recap the top stories now. An Indian court upheld the death sentence for the sole surviving gunman of the 2008 Mumbai attacks. Mohammad Ajmal Amir Qasab was found guilty last May for his part in the attacks, which killed 166 people, wounded more than 300. Anti-government protesters claimed they've seized power in Libya's second city, Benghazi. Thousands of people have taken to the streets there to speak out against Colonel Muammar Gaddafi's rule. Let's have a look now at some of the latest developments in the capital, Tripoli. At least 61 people are said to have died in the latest violence on Monday. Witnesses say security forces have started looting banks and other government institutions, and protesters have been targeting police stations in the capital, breaking into and trashing several precincts. Meanwhile, Libyan tribal leaders have been threatening to block oil exports if the government doesn't, quote, stop the oppression of the protesters.
From the south to the north, east and west, all tribes are united. We're not pressuring any tribe or any person. We see that the priority is to put an end to the bloodshed. We ask this of Muammar al-Gaddafi, Europe and the United States. Otherwise, we will be forced to stop oil production tomorrow.
And events in Libya are pushing oil prices higher. Concerns that protests could disrupt the flow of oil has sent Brent crude to a 2.5-year high. Well, Brent is trading almost $2 higher at $104.60. Well, Saadullah Fathi is an oil expert and former head of energy studies at OPEC. He joins us live from Dubai now. Some of those oil prices, as I mentioned, going up $2 or more. This is a cause for concern, no doubt.
Well, yes, the oil prices are already high because of other trouble spots in the region and especially in producing countries. So